Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Girls Talk 9.0, where we candidly talk about the movie pick of the week and occasionally the topic du jour. Today, we're going to talk about the 2018 horror film Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster. My name is Whaley Hollow. With me is the notorious note taker, Nanya.
No notes today.
We have the fabulous Fly Girl
Morning.
and sensational Sunchild. All right, thanks guys for joining today. All right, so spoiler alert, as usual, we're going to talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end of the movie. We want you to hang around and hear what we have to say and compare our notes to yours. Okay, so what is this movie about? So after a grandmother dies, this family uncovers or discovers some disturbing secrets about their ancestry. And then strange things start to happen that traumatizes and wreaks havoc on the family. And that's pretty much it at a very high level. Fly Girl, why don't you tell us what you thought about it?
I thought the movie was horrible. I just could barely stay awake. I wasn't scared. And you know what bugged me the most? I need to get it out that the son looked like he was like 35. He's a good actor, but I was like, really? Come on. It just, if I had to rate the movie, I would give it a 2. I was so confused I didn't get the plot. I just was like, what's going on? I was like baffled. And then the ending just was even worse. And I still never got, I did, but it was so dumb about the son being the king or something like that. But how they went about it, I thought the plot could have been a lot better because they were just like, in my opinion, jumping all over the place. And I was just like, I fell asleep 15 times and I was like, I got to do it. And so it was just not one of my best.
Wow. Sunchild, you wanna, you wanna go next?
You want to go after that?
I loved it. I did. I loved it. I saw it in theaters with a friend who also loves horror movies when it first came out. And there was a lot of stuff going on. There were some jump scares. Like the beginning, I felt like the beginning really dragged. But once the sister, Charlie, the daughter, got killed and how she got killed, it jumped out of my seat. It picked up from there for me. I like that the plot was intricate, and I have to say, this is the third. Well, I was watching it, my husband interrupted, so I had to watch it again. So I watched it 3 times, and every time you watch it, you pick up more from it. It really is a really good plot, a really good. I love Ann Dowd, the mother's friend who kind of tricked the daughter and to the seance and the whole thing. I love her and everything. She was the one in The Exorcist I was talking about that I love. I believe the neighbor in The Exorcist. She's in a lot of movies. Her acting to me is just like she's always got that like scowl, frown. She's always got something, but you always feel like what's going on with her. Something more is going on with her. And in this movie, it really was. It wasn't so much she kind of poured everything on the table in The Exorcist, but in this movie, she was obviously the mother's friend and she was setting this whole thing up. I loved it. Charlie irked my soul. I felt so bad. I hated myself. Like this little ugly girl got to go on. Then she died and I felt awful. I felt awful she died. But I was happy she wasn't in the movie anymore because she bothered me. She was supposed to be, I don't want to say special needs, but maybe it was that curse because it was meant to be a son. It was meant to be a son that this curse was supposed to be put upon. He was supposed to be the king. So maybe she wasn't really like nourished with love or something, but she irked my soul. I did feel bad she died. I hated how she died. I hated her allergic reaction to whatever was in the cake that she was eating. I felt bad because she was a child, but when she was out of the movie, it picked up for me. It definitely picked up for me after that. I felt like the mother's acting, I love the mother. She seemed always like burdened down by information, like when she ran in the room and blurted out that she never wanted the son, and then, you know, she didn't want to say that. It was almost like she was battling these two things, like her love for him and the fact that somewhere she knew in her heritage or her lineage that that something bad was ominous was set for him because he was a male. I think if you watch it, like, the first like 20 minutes it does drag, but after that it's more of a psychological thriller slash horror than just horror, because it does have an intricate plot. The ending is definitely wild, wild, definitely wild. But I really enjoyed it. I really found it like suspenseful, maybe not so much in a horror way, but suspense. And it was almost like I would like to see a part 2 to see if he accepts this. It's kind of like he realizes he can't fight it. He doesn't want it, but he is like, what is it? Palmanian? What is it called? The devil. It's almost like he accepts his role. It's kind of like, what's the word I want to use? He just gives into it, but it's terrifying. And I can't imagine what that was like for him. But he does seem older. He does seem a lot older than a teenager, but he could cry so easily. His emotions were so like raw all the time. I really felt for him. I felt like he had that guilt of the sister, the wanting to be a child, but this burden of everything happening that no one ever explained to him or that he never knew about. It was wild. I thought it was a wild ride. It had a lot of things, but I think if you watch it, I think you almost have to watch it more than once to really appreciate the things that were going on. I picked up so much more on the third time around. I'm like, oh, I saw that before, if I heard that, if I paid attention to this. Once you kind of know the premise of it and you watch it again and you pick up little things, it really did it. I liked it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it.
So your
I'll
score
go
is
next.
what?
Oh, you want me to score it now? Oh, I'll score it now if you want.
No, no, you want to score it now?
No, don't score it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, score it after we have, because we may change your mind.
We
I mean,
just-
I don't know. So, I mean, I like the movie, but it was like, I don't even know. I mean, it was so disturbing. Like I felt so like nauseous, like the whole time, like the way Charlie died, the way just things were happening that were just so
Right.
unimaginable, like the way the husband died, just so many creepy things that I was like, and the mother, man, did she do a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Her facial expressions, her crying, her, like when there was times where she would just, her mouth was a gap, like she was just like there's no sound, but like in your head, you're creating this scream because she's been screaming the whole movie. I mean, it was just so, I want to say terrifying. It wasn't scary, but for me, I was just like, I don't know. I was,
Emotional.
I'm sorry.
I said emotional, maybe. Were you
Yeah,
emotional?
it was traumatizing for me. Like just the way things were happening and the son, to Sunchild's point, I felt really bad for the son. He was just in a mucked up family. Like the husband was helpless and hopeless. Like he couldn't do anything. Poor Charlie just suffered. The mom was schizophrenic. I just it was so much to unpack in this movie. And I kind of agree with Sunchild, you almost had to see it multiple times, just kind of take it all in to even appreciate what was going on, because it was just so much. I do think it was kind of slow, but I almost felt because it was building and it was a slow build, like, and it built to the ending. I thought the ending was crazy. I was like, where'd this come from? It just seemed so out of place. That I was like, oh, that's it's different, but B, it just seems so weird, like probably half the stuff in the movie. So, I mean, I kind of have mixed feelings. I did like it, but I just felt it was really kind of traumatizing as opposed to like scary or anything like that for me anyway. That's my overview.
Okay, so this is my kind of horror movie. It's the kind of movie that scares the bejesus out of me. And it did that. and I did have to watch it multiple times. I think the first time I saw it in the theater, and because it is so densely packed with
There's so much
imagery and dread that when I saw it the second time, I saw so much more. Like there was a scene where somebody's standing in the corner, and I think I was so traumatized the first time I saw it, I didn't even notice the person in the corner.
Exactly.
It is very unsettling.
Yep.
Very it's just a nightmare. We are literally watching someone's nightmare. And it's such a scary movie that I had to debate whether I was going to watch it a third time just because I didn't want to get scared. But it's the kind of movie that lingers with me and stays with me. And, it's a preference, right? Some people prefer jump scares. I'm not afraid by that kind of thing, but this kind of creepy getting underneath my skin, it just lingers, and it's hard to get rid of those visions in my head. So for me, it's the epitome of horror movies, and I loved it.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of start from the top and kind of work our way down.
Oh,
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
No breaks.
No
breaks.
breaks. Nope. I'll let
If
you know this time.
Please do.
I will. So, it opens up with the mom, at her mom's funeral. She was almost estranged, like the way she was kind of talking and, reading about her thoughts about her mom. And she was very open about it too. She was a private woman. She was hard to get along with. Like usually people try to paint this perfect picture about the deceased, but she really didn't hold back in my view. I mean, she wasn't rude, but she didn't paint this picture that you would walk away thinking this woman was, an angel or anything like that. Um, but I really felt bad for the dad. Like I felt like he was just lost. Like he didn't know how to help, where to help, when to help. And I do feel that he really cared for his children in an odd kind of way. But I do believe he cared for his children. But I thought, in the opening when she kind of talked about, her mom in general, it just automatically set the tone that, okay, here's another dysfunctional family. You know what I mean? And I wasn't sure if the mom was, like she said she had DID. I think that's like a multiple, almost like a schizophrenia, right? And she had dementia, which is, just a bad combination, period. Like I can't even imagine. But I felt like the mom also had some kind of schizophrenia. Like I don't know what was going on with the mom, but she was as crazy as she made her mom out to be, in my view.
It's interesting. I definitely felt as if the father loved his family.
Yeah.
I think if the people you love start acting bizarre, and I'm not talking about anything that we're used to bizarre, but like really unhinged in a subtle way, I think, you don't know how you're going to react to that. And that to me was kind of his thing. He wanted to be supportive. He
Yep.
wanted to believe what she was saying, but his training and his experiences said this can't be true. And that's the way I think it would be. I mean, if somebody I really cared deeply about was really acting like off the walls, that's frightening.
Yes,
That's
it
frightening.
is.
And there's no amount of conversation that's going to change that. So I don't know. To me, his behavior was kind of understandable. I thought the point you just made about the daughter being almost as crazy as the mother made sense to me too, because I think kids who grow up in families with parents with mental health issues, I mean, a lot of it's hereditary to begin with, and then I think it becomes sort of your norm. And so to me that kind of made sense that she would be a little wacky because she grew up with a very wacky mom. But it was very believable to me, very believable.
Oh gosh, yeah, she did such a phenomenal job. That's why it was so traumatizing and scary, because she was so good at it.
I think
got to be one of the best actresses out there.
Oh,
She's
hands
amazing.
down.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Amazing.
When she did that cry scene when she had lost her Charlie, I mean, I felt it to my bones. Like typically, people kind of cry but she was just like, oh my God, I want to die, Charlie. Like she's rocking just the whole scene. I was like, oh my God, that's probably the way I would be. Like you could feel it. You know what I mean? Like she really did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. And the son, can we talk about that scene anyway? The son was so numb. He didn't even tell anybody. He just went straight to the room and lied down. The mom didn't find out until she got in the car to go someplace. What? That's got to be the worst way on the planet to find your daughter. No head, dead in the back of your car, and nobody tells you. Like, it can't get any worse than that. It can't get any worse than that.
Like,
Like,
why do you even do that? Like, who does that? I thought that was awfully strange, and I thought her erratic behavior, life made her erratic like that. I didn't think that was like her normal because every time, all the time, it was always traumatic for her. So she always kind of had to she was always reactive to everything, and I think things that were happening in her life made her appear crazy. But maybe I would be acting like that too if the life event just was one after another, and so it
one of the
just
things
made
she
her that
said
way.
one of the things she said at the dining room table when they were having dinner and they had that argument, she said nobody takes responsibility for anything. Nobody admits anything. So maybe to your point, Fly Girl, she is reactive to anything because she's seeing so many things happen and no one's saying, because she said to her son, you never even said, I'm sorry. Like you just left it there. And now I can't even forgive you because I don't know if you're sorry. Like, and I know she knows that he was sorry, but she was just so stressed, so wound up at that point. And you could tell she was constantly trying to search for answers. Do you know what I mean? She was going to Joan and going to this, I don't know, all
I
these
thought
other
she was just
places.
incredible. She just was so believable and
Oh
so,
my God.
because I feel like, it took me probably like that last time I'm like Hereditary. Okay, it's all making sense because all of this strange behavior is she somewhat schizophrenic or did she just grow up in that environment? So no one communicated. No one knows how to communicate. And now I feel like as dysfunctional as they had like this good love for each other. They had genuine, they weren't like just there, just going through motions. They had love for each other, but they didn't know how to communicate or express that. And the father being what was he, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, his
Okay.
training went against everything that she was trying to tell him. So he, it's foreign to him. He's basing everything on like logic and explanations, and she's trying to tell him about something that's so much bigger. So to him, his uh career wants to just diagnose her as suffering from schizophrenia like her mother. I think she really had like maybe some mental illness, but this bigger like love for her family, just wanting to overcome any like overcome any chemical imbalance that she may be suffering from and just get everything, get them to see what she was saying. She just did such a phenomenal job. And I think I'll watch it again because I'm sure there's something else that I missed. I think I really found it. It was like heavy. It's very heavy. It will weigh on you. I looked up some things and someone compared it to Midsummer. Not at all. Right? There's a movie I absolutely hate. Not at all. But I can understand it's also one of those things that it's deeper than what you're watching. You really have to sit down and pay attention to detail. I'm sorry, Nanya.
Oh no, I was gonna say I actually loved Midsummer, but but it's not, it's for the same reasons that some of the same reasons I like this, which is I don't mind a slow build because I think real horror in real life is a slow build. The clown jumping out of the closet, no, but somebody descending into madness, that's going to happen over time. And I thought what I got from this movie was, we all love our mothers. And if my mother was acting very strange and had started to deteriorate maybe towards the end and acting stranger and stranger, there's no way that's not going to have a psychological impact on me. My whole day is going to be trying to sort out what's happening to her, right? And so you can imagine, and then that person's still even acting out. You still love that person. You're recognizing that they're doing these things, but you want more than anything to help solve that person's problem, but you don't even know what the problem is, and they can't articulate it. To me, that was the horror of this film, is sort of bad things or things happening that are inexplicable, right? It's not your childhood imaginary friend. It's not, the boogeyman in the closet. These are inexplicable things that are happening to people who love each other. And I think that in that situation, I think most people are going to be dysfunctional, right? I think, most families have secrets when there's not even a devil involved, right? There's no demon. People have, people don't talk about things that are obvious. People won't even talk about, okay, this person the other day, I don't know, left something out on the counter and everybody's mad about it. People won't even confront people about that. So I don't know how, I think it's realistic that you're not going to have a sit down dinner conversation about this thing that nobody can even can even describe or put words on. They just know something's different, something's uneasy, things seem to be getting worse, nobody understands why. And again, that to me is horrifying. But I liked Midsummer for the same reason, which is you knew something was up, you knew people are acting strange, but you just didn't know why.
Maybe it's one of those I need to watch like over again to have an appreciation. Like Hereditary, I felt like it was slow in the beginning, but like I said, it picked up like, I don't want to say mid, but maybe like half hour, 40 minutes in, and then it was just captivating to me. And like every time I watch it, I feel like I'm more drawn to something else. It puts me deeper in this rabbit hole of like curiosity, like wanting to know more things about her mother. I don't think initially I picked up her digging through the boxes and seeing that doormat with the symbols and her putting the connection with Joan. And I was like, wow, how did I miss that the first time? Like, of course that makes sense. I remember her seeing the pictures, but even the doormat was like, when she saw Joan's doormat, she knew something was familiar about it. So there was always something nagging her about this woman, but she still kept going. The woman was offering her, comfort over her daughter. So just little tiny things that you may have missed, like the first go around, it just all like comes together for you when you watch it again.
Yeah. So there's two things I want to point out. One that I think Nanya probably brought them both up or made me remember this. One was we talked about the husband, right? I think it's one thing to do your profession and diagnose someone, but it's a whole different ball game when you actually experience it. Because then, because we can all take a good math test, but unless you're like in there experiencing it, it's like, ooh, okay, so this is real. And I think, his experience probably negated just about everything he thought he learned, which he did learn, but it's very different. And the other thing is, she also mentioned that, we all love our mothers, whatever. And even at the circle, remember she said at the circle for the first time, she just laid everything out. First, she didn't want to talk, but then she was like, well, here's my mother's story. And she first said, I love my mother, but here's her story. Her husband starved himself to death. Who does that? The son was schizophrenic and hung himself in their bedroom. So her mom had already experienced all this death. And I don't know if it's because, honestly, I don't know why it was. I know she said something about at the very end, they were looking for the right body. Maybe those two weren't the right bodies. I don't know why they died, but the daughter did say, those things about her mom. And despite all those things, she said, I still love my mom. She had a hard life. That was her life. So I just thought it was interesting.
I think I need to watch it like one more time. I want to know who put the mother's body upstairs. Like when she saw that, when I first saw the body, I was like, is that Charlie? Whose body is that?
Joan's body? That's what I thought. I didn't know
It was
it
was the mother's body.
It was the mother's body, but I'm like, who put the
grandmother's body?
Right. And then the whole headless thing was just wild with her up there, so her head, it was just crazy. The ending, like really, it's very satanic. It was like heavy, but because it had like this whole story, like I didn't I was terrified of it, but I also understood like there's a lot of psychosis going on in this movie. A lot of, was she really like satanic? Did she want to worship this? Did she want to have a son that was king of the devils, or was it just it like her mind? So I think that's part of the plus of the movie for me. It's like it's thought provoking. A lot of horror movies you go and I love reality TV. I love horror movies you don't have to think about. You just go and watch and get jump scares and leave. But I also have like such an appreciation for ones that have this intricate plot and they really bring it like piece by piece. And then there's so many other little pieces. Like every time you watch it, you're like, oh my God, I missed that the first time. I really like that it scares me because I do believe that a lot of horror movies that have to do with like possession, devil worship, and all that absolutely real, absolutely happens in our like reality in life. Just like there are people who go to church all the time and believe God. I think it's the same thing. And we know that evil exists on the earth. And I feel like were they trying to well, they're trying to worship the devil. So I think that's part of the mental illness. I think that's part of schizophrenia.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think you
So it's-
almost
I would. mm,
I think you almost have to know to appreciate the movie, like going into it, like what it was kind of like about. If not, like me, because like hearing you guys, I'm starting to connect the dots. But I think if you don't know going in, you're just like, okay, because yeah, it was slow at the beginning, and all of a sudden it just keeps jumping, and then you're trying to process what just happened, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and you're trying to identify with the mom at the same time, and the father and the child as just a person. Like if that was your family, like how would your husband react, and how you as a person would react as a mother. So yeah. So I think, like you said earlier, you probably change your score after you listen to everybody. Because, and I think I will go back and look at it again because, yeah, I just think now that I know what it's about and I could follow it, process it, I'd probably give it a higher score.
yeah. And I think, we talked about the mom doing a great job. I just want to give kudos to the son too. I mean, he might not have looked like a teenager, but I still think he captivated someone who was very traumatized. I mean, everything about him looked traumatic. His body language, the whole scene in the classroom where he looks like he's having a stroke and starts banging his, I mean, just, when the fact that he, just he didn't kill his sister, but he was in an accident with his sister, and he's so traumatized that he can't even talk about it. He just goes and lays almost like in an awake coma. Like, I mean, I think he did a great job. I even think the strange looking Charlie did it. I mean, that girl is very eccentric looking. I'm sure she's typecast a lot. Something about even just the way she looked just fit that role so well. And she said not much of anything, but she just fit the role so well. Everything about her mannerism. So, kudos to them as well. Like they really did a good job.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that the son, or it appeared that way if I need to go back and look at it, that he never got help and like he just went back to school like it was another Tuesday. Like he was just always traumatized, but nobody was going back except for that one time when the father said, this is my son and I care about him right now in the present state. But it was just like everybody was going except for the mom, of course, but the son was just going around like it was just another day. He was traumatized, but not seeking help, not the mother comforting and hugging and talking about it and saying, "Are you okay?" Or even looking after him or, hugging him all the time or trying
Well,
to get
remember,
help. It was just like, I
I
thought
don't know
that
if you
was
remember
super
this, but
weird.
he was scared of his mom because the mom tried to burn him and his sister. She had poured paint thinner on them and had matches in her hand, and he happened to wake up and see that she was about to burn them to death. So ever since then, he was afraid of his mom.
Right.
But normal instinct, you never give up. You still try and then you still try to get them help. That was like a traumatic thing for him. You don't just go to school the next day
No,
like
I agree. He
a
needed help.
Tuesday.
They all needed help.
Yeah, I just think the mom was acting because like she was desperate. Her daughter died, so she was So that's why she did the seance. She could never accept it. And so she just did some crazy things. Like, what would you do? Like, if your daughter just died, would you try to cling to everything to try to hold on to her? So I didn't think it was like weird. I just thought that was her searching on how to deal with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
I think that we as a country, culture, we don't really do a lot of mental health processing.
Mhm.
I think it's very realistic that, he would be back in school after about 2 or 3 days, because that's how it seems to work. Because there's a school of thought that says that you need to kind of resume your normal activities sometimes when you're grieving. It helps to have like normal activities. But I don't know that so I think that the daughter's death was the biggest event in terms of actions, but it was clearly things creeping up to that moment that had put all of the people involved in different mindsets, so that they're not going to react the way a normal person would react when things like this happens, right? I think that's kind of the sense that I got. But I would also say that I think the acting across the board was amazing. That young girl was phenomenal. The boy was phenomenal. The father was phenomenal. As you said, Toni Collette is an amazing, amazing actress. The other thing that I did enjoy about the movie was the quiet, creepy moments. I've said this before on this channel many times. Those are the ones that get to me. And the scene when the girl is just in the room and she just thinks something's in the corner, and they just keep showing the corner. And I was like, am I seeing something in the corner? Even my mind was starting to play tricks with me. It's like, is there something there that I don't see? Like, and that's the way the movie was the whole time. I was just like, what's happening? What's going to come out of the corners next? And I think in terms of outright scares, I think there were plenty. It's not a jump scare type of movie necessarily, but there are plenty of scary scenes, including the one in which the mother was chasing the guy through the house.
Oh my God.
That was the most scary thing.
Because
Always,
she was too fast.
she was too fast.
I was like, what?
I just think, again, my mother, if she was chasing me up the stairs in a nightgown acting crazy, there's nothing on earth that would be more terrifying to me. I would face 500 imaginary boogeymans rather than face my mother chasing me in a nightgown up the steps. Like, that's horrifying.
Yep.
And so I thought that scene was incredibly scary. I thought the scene of the kid in the school when he was looking in the mirror and seeing, a reflection that he didn't recognize, I thought that was terrifying. The father getting lit up, like it just the demons in the corners of the house. I mean, there were so many. Just
So the mom cutting her neck.
Yeah,
that
so many things.
was it.
There were so
And she
yeah.
looked up and she's on the ceiling. What?
Yeah.
I was thrown off by that. I was like, okay, where did that come from? Her being on the ceiling crawling. Like, did something entered her, right? Like after the father got burnt or something entered her.
I mean, they kept showing this blue orb, right? Every time something happened, you'd see this blue light. I didn't see it for her, but I'm assuming she was so open, considering she had tried to talk to Charlie, that maybe, things just kind of made their way in.
Did you say
Through her mouth?
Did you say anything about the director? I know you normally talk about who.
What about him?
Did you say? So I'm sorry. Did you say anything about him? Has he done other things? Like
I didn't say anything else about him.
I know normally you go into something more if there's more to it, but I think whenever there's a story with mental illness in it and demonic stuff, it's mind blowing, because what are they trying to say? This is what a person with schizophrenia or mental illness is like. Is this what they experience? This whole like things happening and you're not sure what's reality and what's not. I felt like they put us in that mindset. I'm like, is this supposed to be the mental illness? Is this the demonic stuff? Is like, what am I seeing? It was so mind blowing to me. It was really crazy. It was thoughtful. It was I loved it. I really did. I loved it. And I probably will watch it again because I still feel like I probably missed something. But the acting was really good. I had a lot of empathy for the dad. I feel like he didn't really know. I felt like he wasn't like a strong person and he didn't know really what to do. He just wanted to be there and love them. And he was hoping that, that would be enough.
That's all we of us could do, right? I mean, who knows what to do in a situation you've never been in before, nor has anybody been in before. I was going to make a comment about the whole schizophrenia. I'm not sure what his thought process was, if that was meant to be a connection. But I will say that the folks that have schizophrenia, their stories are the scariest stories you're ever going to hear. Like, I'm not talking about the little, not bipolar, very different, but true schizophrenics. They always hear voices. They always seeing something. And that's not hyperbole. That's not, that's just a fact. That's why that's why they have such a high suicide rate, because they can't deal with what they're seeing, that other people aren't. And so I don't know if he was trying to make a point about that, but it was very clear to me that there was something real happening separate from the schizophrenia. So was there schizophrenia, or was it being perceived as schizophrenia because people didn't believe what they were seeing and hearing was real? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I would say, because the other thing is women who have postpartum psychosis, those ladies see some things too. So I think in those moments, I think the only way that we as a society who, can understand it is by putting it into some kind of mental health bucket. But the mental health bucket might have nothing to do with what was happening there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that was the point I was making. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I didn't get that point, but yeah.
Yeah, I just thought she was just reacting as a mother, because honestly, I feel like my aunt had schizophrenia, and to your point, she did wind up killing herself because her personality. I mean, I think she was diagnosed as something, and they had her on medication. But when I was young, I didn't understand that stuff. I just knew that she would just, like, you would be talking to her, and she's super sweet, and then all of a sudden, she's like another person, and you'd be like, what is going on? Because it just didn't even, just like, she just turned into a whole different person that you just never knew. And I just never, as a child, you don't understand that. And I did become scared of her because of that. So yeah.
Yeah, one of my friends.
I thought it was weird too, that to me, her mom was a devil worshiper. But how do you grow up and not know that your mom is a devil worshiper? Because there was clearly signs of all this in that box of the things that she did. And if you grew up with your mom, how would you just not ever know that until she died and you look in the box? But to me, that was super weird, and that she never knew that her mom worshiped the devil.
That's not weird to me, because Lord knows, I mean, I never went through my mother's drawers. She didn't worship the devil or anything like that. But, as a child, you're not going through your parents' stuff. You don't really know, it's possible that parents have secrets from their children. I think that's pretty common, actually. And unless you're overtly religious family, what their person's beliefs in may not always be apparent.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it appeared that she was doing seances and stuff. That's why I just thought it wasn't like she was just, she didn't seem to me like she was an in the closet devil worshiper.
But I would say if you're not exposed to other religions, being a devil worshiper might not be uncommon or abnormal to you, right? It's when you're introduced to other religions where people start telling you devil worshiping is a bad thing. That's when you start doing the comparison. I mean, maybe she wasn't in it and just didn't realize, there were negative impacts or whatever. You could have someone could say, I don't know, Christianity is a negative religion, right? I mean, like, unless you're exposed to other things and you really are open-minded, you might not even realize, that whatever religion you're believing in is abnormal or not.
That makes sense.
Right, because we keep saying the devil, the devil. To them, it was just it was an entity, a powerful entity, which to me it means, you know, evil, but they didn't see it that way. This entity that was going to bring them success and
Right.
power and wealth and all of those things. And you know, people worship that, whether they acknowledge it today, every day, by the choices that they make, right? That they're worshiping wealth and power and money. So, you know, that's a good point. It's we're perceiving it as a devil, but that's not how the mother or the grandmother may have perceived it as. What I was going to mention about one of my friends here, her brother committed suicide. I think was it last time of summer before last. And they knew he had schizophrenia and he wasn't taking his meds a lot. And they really just didn't, as a family, you just don't know what to do other than tell the person to take their meds, right? You know, she tried going with him to counseling sessions, and then what do you say to a person who is scaring you to death by saying you don't hear those voices? You can't hear that, you know. And my friend is as normal as can be. And she was just like, you know, I didn't even want to be alone with him. She said, this is her brother who she loved.
Yep.
The things he was saying was so scary to them, and families just don't know what to do. Like, I just think that we're being too harsh on families sometimes when it comes to this kind of thing. So we don't handle mental health well, even in the best families, right? Even in the most progressive, compassionate, loving families, we have always failed on the mental health issue. I think I know we have in my personal family. So I think that it's, you know, it's not too implausible that they would all be sort of walking around in a fog trying to figure out if, you know, what to do if this is real. Because one of my friends dealt with it. And when, I hate to say it, but when he killed himself, they knew it was coming. I mean, he said he couldn't deal with it anymore. He kept telling them he couldn't deal with it anymore. And what do you say to a person you've known your whole life? You're saying they see and hear things, and they can't deal with it anymore, and you don't see or hear anything that they see or hear. You know, that's hard. That's hard.
And how do you know, like, I guess it depends on your religious background. Of course, I'm sure mine plays a lot in it of what I seen when I was younger, but how do you know when it's a mental illness or when it's a demonic possession? And I know that's going into like people's beliefs or not, because there's that fine line. Like you've even seen it in the Bible, like when and the devil the demons came out, legion came out of the little boy. Like how do you know the difference between the two? Like, is it a mental illness or could that person just be possessed? Like, how do you know that?
I think it goes back to Whaley's point. It's your perception, right? If you are not part of the legion crowd, right, that believes in the Bible and demon possessions in that way, you're going to perceive what's happening very different. Just like somebody who might have a view from maybe the Quran, maybe they have a view about demons, right? So you're going to look at it from whatever religious and, you know, background you bring to it. And if you don't bring to it any background, right, if you don't bring to it any story that explains it, and you're just looking at it from a pure scientific perspective, you're going to come to those conclusions, right? So, for example, my friend whose brother was schizophrenic, nobody in the family thought he was possessed, although they're very Catholic. But it's because they didn't make that correlation. So it's up to you, right? If you see somebody acting crazy, if you think it's because of that God did this and this is, you know, the result of him creating the devil and all this happening, then that's what you're going to believe. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I get it to a certain, I mean, I don't think, yeah. I just think I think you know evil. I think you feel evil. And maybe that's my answer. Like you would know the difference.
Well, then there's a huge difference because mental illness has nothing to do with evil, right? So a person who's acting out, saying that they see the devil, that they see black blobs, that they see this, that's, you know, that's got nothing to do with evil if you're talking about just the symptoms. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining it, but so the brother seeing things or hearing sounds wasn't an evil issue. He was nothing evil about him. He just was hearing things, seeing things that nobody else was hearing or seeing. And there was no impression from the family that he was evil. And I think most people, I mean, I think we know they're wonderful people. I mean, mental health is a not a science, but there's scientific evidence of brain disorders. And so I think you can separate that from somebody who is not diagnosed by a medical professional, but is still claiming to see things or hear things or believe things.
And I would say you don't have to be religious or schizophrenic to be evil. Like you could just be an evil person, period. Like it's just a
100%.
behavior, in my view.
100%. 100.
But I wanted to talk about this dollhouse or whatever it was that she was building or whomever was. Now, did the mom, was her mom first doing that and then she picked it up and finished it? Or was it her job? Because every room was a room in the house. You know, she was doing the death of her daughter. She was doing a hospice room. Like all the rooms seemed to be, I don't know. What was the story behind that? I was trying to figure out what was so important about that.
It appeared it was her profession because they were giving her timelines and stuff, right, to finish stuff.
But
Yeah,
then
she
she
was
has personal rooms in there. Like, why would she have?
because I think as an artist, that's where you're gonna put that's how you work through your feelings and emotions, right? So I think that, you know, you can be an artist and be tormented and it show up in your works that you sell to the public, right?
Right?
Just like
So I
singers.
think that she was working through her feelings and her memories of her mother, and so she's recreating scenes from her real life. I think that that's kind of normal for an artist to do. I don't think that didn't strike me as being weird.
No, just the head. When she had the head there, and he was like, how is Peter gonna feel when he sees this? Because she had her daughter's death kind of mapped out
Yeah, why
there.
would you do that?
That was wild.
Because again, if that's how you as an artist work through those feelings, right? And it's not saying that other somebody else would be okay with it, but if it helped her to understand it, to recreate it and see it in her art, I think that's not that unusual. Now the son, I don't know how often he ever went in that room, so I don't think that maybe her intention wasn't for him to see it, but it could have been just for her to work through the horror of what she experienced.
Yeah. And a lot of times when we're working through something, we're really not thinking about how it's going to affect somebody else because we need to work through it. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
And it's her bedroom. He can stay out. Like, I mean, that's the things that she did wrong to him. You know what I mean? Like, that's the least, because she was,
Yeah. I do think it's one of those movies you have to watch more than once to grasp everything that's going on. And like Fly Girl said, I do think it helps if you know, like at least the plot, so you can kind of say, okay, this is what this is about. Let me see if I can follow along. It helps because I went in the first time not knowing, although I did have like a great appreciation for it because I found it mind blowing. But once I did go back and read the plot and see it a second time, I was like, oh, it kind of like puts it together for you.
Yeah.
How about the scene where she does, it's not really a seance, but she wakes up her son, brings her husband, they go into the dining room, and she tries to bring Charlie back, and all this stuff happens, and then she starts growling, speaking, and you think she was speaking in voice, like, do you think she was changing her voice, but do you think she was actually
Possessed by
I don't know, possessed? I mean, you think it was actually Charlie speaking, or was it just her speaking to herself, pretty much?
I thought the whole time it was her daughter speaking to her. Like I thought she was possessed by her daughter. That's when she started. Yeah, I thought it was her daughter, and then the father threw water on her and
Wake up. He's like, wake up, this nonsense.
I thought that's what made the movie so good though, because it's so thought provoking. Like you have all these questions, and no matter which way you think, it's still wild. Like
Yeah.
was it her psychosis or is it her like pain and her wanting to hear from her daughter so bad that she's just doing this? Like a seance is something that when Joan tells her, she's like, yeah, right, you know, she's so far removed from it. But when when she goes with her to the house and the glass moves for the Joan's grandson, she's all in. She's like, anything to, you know, hear my daughter again. As a mother, you know, you can definitely understand that, you know, you don't want to go dig them up, but if somebody says, you know, you might have one last chance to say something to them, to hear that they're okay. I think we all want to know when someone passes, especially in a traumatic or way of trauma or like murder or something, that you want to know that they're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not having a seance, but if they came to me in a dream and said I'm fine, I would be happy with that. I wouldn't be summoning anyone up, but if I could know that, I would be happy.
Yeah, like why did the father, that bothered me too. When the wife threw the Bible in there, she's supposed to burn, but why when she threw the Bible in there, the father burnt up? Like I didn't get that.
Well, she
I was
did put the gasoline on it or something, and it could have been that why it started from the foot and went up. I don't know, but that could be why, because she did burn the book in his hands. So whoever touched the book, it seems, you know, kind of got burnt, but yeah, I
I kind
don't
of felt
know.
they wanted to remove him because he was so against.
um,
He had that negative, you know, he wasn't open to the idea where she was, and they needed Peter, so they were going to take him anyway, whether he was open to it or not. I think the entities, the mother's spirit and all the grandmother's, what's her name, Tony Collette's mother's spirit. I think they did that to him because he was
um,
really against this. In my opinion, I have no idea if it's right or not.
yeah, I found myself saying, "Throw it, just throw it in. Why don't you just throw it in the fire?"
And if she knew you would burn, why wouldn't they have water around? I mean, you know, you might burn, get some water. Like, where's the hose? I would have the hose. Okay, let's try this, but get the hose.
At that point, I thought she knew it was like somebody had to be sacrificed, and she thought she was gonna burn. Like if he threw it, I thought she knew she was gonna burn, but she was willing to sacrifice her life for her family. That's what I got from that scene. But I don't know if that was right. Is that
It's
what you guys
interesting.
got?
Oh,
Oh.
I didn't know. I don't know that I.
I mean, if she wanted to sacrifice herself, she would have stayed, because she burned originally. And if she wanted to sacrifice herself, she would have continued to burn, but she didn't want to do that. She also felt she was the only one that could, quote, stop what was happening. So maybe that's why she put the fire out.
So just kind of maybe going back a little bit to what we were just talking about, it is interesting if you think about prior to this modern day era where we can diagnose mental illness as best we can, right? I mean, it's you know, I don't know how it's a science, but it's, you know, one of those a lot of speculation
Not
in
an
it.
exact science, yeah.
Hmm?
It's not an exact science, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But when you think about the things that we've heard over, you know, historically, and you wonder, and that were attributed to evil, and you wonder if those people just had mental illness, right? When you think about, you know, the women getting burned at stakes because they were witches.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of them had schizophrenia, talked about hearing voices, and suddenly they were on a stake in front of, you know, in front of a church explaining why they heard voices, and next thing you know, they're burned. Or, you know, people in the village maybe getting ostracized. I'm just thinking over history, and we go far back, think of how many stories we've heard about people behaving weirdly, and now we probably would attribute most of that to a mental health issue.
Yep.
I think anything unexplainable, people just assume that it's a mental health thing. Anything unexplainable.
I'm saying today we do. Previously, think of all the people who died who might have had mental health, and they died, you know, they were burned or prosecuted because of that. Today, I think we do think a lot of things are mental health because we know, you know, we know a lot more about mental health. And we have a lot, we do have some, you know, scientific data. We have brain scans, we have things like that they wouldn't have had, you know, 50 years ago. So, and I also think there's a much greater appreciation for the brain and the mind than there was in the past, right? I think people I think scientists understand that the brain is truly the last frontier. It's the body organ that we know the least about. And it can unlock so many things. So
I think the more you're exposed to in life too, the more open you are to things that like this. Like if yeah, I just think if you're exposed to like religion, if you're exposed to stuff that you've seen yourself, if you're exposed to mental health, then you're able to kind of process it a little better.
Right.
So I don't know if you guys noticed, but on Charlie's wall, there were words. One of them was Saintany, the other one was like Zakar or something, Zazar or something. One is talking to the dead, the other one is something about, I don't know, cosmic transitions or something. Do you guys think that um Charlie was talking to the grandmother the whole time? I mean, first of all, can we talk about who allows a kid to go to school? Back in the day, we could have gone to school with scissors, but who allows a kid in this day and age to go to school with scissors, right? She had the scissors and she cut the bird's neck off. Remember that? She had point, not plastic
how are
scissors.
you going to stop them? How are you going to stop them?
I
Like,
think
go to
she was
school
in,
with
did
scissors.
you see what she was doing in the
so-
classroom? I mean, she had
With
like
a
a wrench. I mean, I think you would have known, maybe I should check Charlie's pockets. She's probably got everything in there.
Probably that's what I was thinking.
She wouldn't have been able to make it through the metal detector. Like she had so much stuff on her.
We didn't have metal detector. It depends on what school, what part of the
I know,
country.
we didn't have it either,
Yeah,
but I'm just
and I know
saying,
Ron's school
Most
did
schools
though.
don't have them now.
no,
Yeah.
no.
But
But I just thought it was odd that she had like kitchen scissors in her pocket and she cut the bird's head off and started doing, I
I
think, maybe her own little ritual. So do you guys think she was talking to her grandmother?
I think she had a special connection with her grandmother because remember when she was born, the mother even said that the mother they had a special connection
Yeah.
to the daughter. So I thought the whole time that she, kind of had a connection to her grandmother. But when she died, I was just like, well, maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, because I couldn't see the words. I was trying to figure out, I couldn't read the words, but I was trying. But clearly, because remember the grandmother when she went outside barefoot, and I thought that was a grandmother with the fire and the mother, I mean, around her.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like she would see, and then she said she missed her grandmother, and so I thought, like, yeah, I thought she had this special connection with her.
So you think the head was like a gift to the grandmother?
Something.
Like, why was she bringing the head over there? You think it was maybe
Yeah,
like a sacrifice or
that's
something?
what I thought. It was something that I couldn't put together, but it was some connection.
Mhm.
Maybe if I relook at it again, I'll connect a little bit more dots.
Mhm.
That's what my thoughts were. Somebody else had a different thought.
I mean, I thought the same thing. Sunshine had asked about the director. I can't remember what his last name is, but it's Ari something.
Aster.
And
Aster, Aster.
okay, this was his first film.
Hmm.
It was deep.
He both wrote it, which is unusual, and directed it.
Wow.
He had done a short film. I think he did a short film previous to this, but this was his first feature-length film. And I would love to know so much more about what inspired him to do this, because he's seen some things in his life if you wrote this and directed it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And I want to see, I don't know if Whaley has it up in front of her. I'm not on my PC, so I can't check, but there's a short film that he did that was also widely acclaimed. And I think that I probably will go back and watch that.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
Wait,
I
do you
always
guys
wonder about
remember?
authors. I'm sorry, I was just saying I always wonder about authors who do scary movies because you have to really have some type of imagination or something to
Yeah.
create like The Exorcist, and that's just to me, it's just not a normal to be able to. I guess you could be an artist and creative like that, but it just feels a little bit more deeper than that. I mean, I couldn't really just create like a demonic movie unless, I just feel like just like with artists, it's always something when you're really good at something, it's something that's coming out of coming out of you to be believable or
Yeah.
to be scary. So I always wonder about even books, like the
Yeah.
person who actually wrote it or something like that.
Yeah.
To Angela's point.
Do you guys remember the scene where this is kind of towards the end where Peter comes down the stairs, that he walks into the room where his dad is burnt on the floor. The mom is up in the corner, but he turns around and he looks at the door and there's a figure in the door. Do you guys know who was that?
That was payment.
Oh,
And
okay.
that goes back to my point about the first time I saw the movie.
Okay.
I didn't even see half the people hiding in the corners until later. I was like, what? Yeah,
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I was like, who the heck is that?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Who was it again?
The devil, the king, the
Payment. Yeah, his
Payment.
name is Payment. Yeah.
That was the king of the devils, right? So he needed a host body. And I
Yeah.
guess it was like supposed to be Charlie, but since she was dead, it had to be Charlie and put into Peter in human form.
She said something about the female body didn't work, and then we used the male body. So I don't know if they meant Charlie or another female. I don't really know, but they mentioned at the very end when they were in that room. And whose dead bodies were those that were bent over? Because the lady said something like, you don't have to worry, Charlie, it's okay. Like, you remember when they were kind of worshiping, there were people who were alive, I guess, and then there were people with no heads.
So
Did you
that
see
was
that too?
her mother. That was the
The mother?
grandmother. So he got I just saw it in here because I missed that part, but I was looking along so I could remember the names. I guess the father got a phone call that the grandmother's grave was dead.
Was desecrated, yeah. Yep.
And maybe Joan, I don't know who dug her up and put her body
Right.
up. I still want to know who that was.
He
That was
blamed
her.
Annie, but it couldn't have been her because she was.
Right. Right. So the mother and his and Tony Collette, because she had the nightgown on. So it was those two. And who else?
I just assumed it was the other believers from around, it was they all
Yeah.
kind of gathered there.
But those were people. Then there were two with no heads.
No, I thought that I didn't.
The
I
two
thought like the
daughter and the mother.
The daughter and the mother. Yeah.
Yes, but the other people were just like the neighbor was a believer. Not the neighbor, but the other old woman who was the
Joan,
one.
yep.
I thought it was like those kind of people were there.
I think so.
Like, I don't
I
think
was trying to figure out, were they real? Because remember he saw them in the attic. I don't know how they got in the attic, but there were three naked people in the attic standing there. That's when he jumped through the window towards the end and then went to walk over to the tree house. I was like, well, are they dead? And then he saw people as he was walking, he saw more people in the garden standing there.
Why were they naked? I was just wondering why they were naked.
I don't
I
know.
feel like he was resolved at the end. I feel like he just knew that.
Yeah, he had given in. He was
Yeah.
like, I can't fight this. There was nobody left. His
There's
sister,
nobody.
mom, dad, everybody's gone. So,
Right. So there's nobody, and he just.
and I guess if I saw my mother floating up to a treehouse, what am I gonna do? Like at that point, it's almost like being in a zombie apocalypse and you're the only person left. You're like, just bite me, because there's nothing else for me to do. I'm going with you guys.
How back in the day, they all want to be there.
what else is out there. Yeah.
Yep.
Right on up the steps. You ain't leaving me here.
Nope.
What year was it written? I'm trying to see if there's going to be a part two. Like what year?
2018 is when it came out. I don't know when he wrote it though.
2018. Maybe
there won't be a part two to this.
There won't.
I don't think.
Where would you go, I guess, if there were a part two? Like, where would you go with it?
Like he grows up and like, does he get married and have kids and like, what is that about? That's how I thought. I mean, that you can't go anywhere but that. It has to be his life, right?
Yeah, I don't think it would have the same impact. Like, I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe he'd be real creative, but I'm not sure where you could go after all that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I do think, going back to, of course, it's taken to the extreme, but I'm convinced that if people knew that that they could be rewarded with riches and fame and power, people would pray to anybody and
They do
anything.
today.
Yeah, we say every day. People,
Yeah.
whether they acknowledge it or not, that is what they're
Yeah.
doing. And so, yeah, to me, it was 100% believable that the grandmother would be like, wait a minute, if I just, pledge myself to this spirit, I'm going to be rewarded with money and fame and everything else. Yeah. Sign
I
me
mean,
right up. I mean,
isn't
not
there
me.
other religions? If people who
100%.
worship for eternal life, right? I don't need to say what
100%.
religion that is, but it's all the same, right? Everyone's wanting something else.
100%. Those that do worship for that reason, yes, versus wanting to,
But nothing good came out of it. Like to me, all of their lives were horrible. Even the mom. So like, if you're praying for demonic stuff to be better or whatever, I didn't see it. It was no
Well, it's
evidence.
about
But you could say the
sacrifice,
same
right?
thing about anything that you pray to, right? People pray
Yeah.
for things to happen and they walk out the door and get hit by a bus, right? I mean, you could pray to a positive spirit. Bad things happen to good people, good things happen to bad people across the whole globe. So who you worship doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get good things out of it. Does that make sense? We all know people who went to church every day and then, like I said, got hit by a bus one day. Like bad things happen to good people too.
Yep. So do you guys remember the scene at the very beginning when they're at the grandmother's funeral? The mom, she's so crazy. She walks up and she wipes something on the mother's lips. Do you guys know what it was?
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
I didn't
I,
either. She wiped on her lips.
I don't know. I was like, are her lips cracked? I mean, I know she's dead and all. Is it Vaseline? But it was almost like in a conspicuous way because Charlie was in the back watching her like, what is my mom doing? I don't know. I just thought it was odd. She leaned over and she wiped something on her lip. And they showed that for a reason. Like, why would they, you know what I mean? I don't know why. I don't know what she put on her lips. Maybe I don't know what she was doing. I just thought it was odd.
It might be viewing number 10 before we find that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. There's so many little subtle things, and
That's
I
right.
pick up something
right.
every time I see it. I pick up something else. Like I said, I knew she stopped and looked at those rugs when she was digging through the boxes, but she stopped at Joan's door. Like, where have I seen this rug before? Like everything is so subtle, but it all
Yep.
comes together. You
Yep.
really have to pay attention to when you're
Yeah.
watching. Like there's not, I feel like there's not a scene that doesn't have something to connect with something else. And if you're really paying attention to it, you get it all.
I
That's
wonder
what
if the mom
appreciate
made her
about-
Joan's rugs. Because remember, she said, my mom made a rug for me and my husband. Maybe she made Joan's too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure she did. That was probably the way of
Absolutely.
numbers, right?
That was
Right.
the
They were
connection.
friends. She saw all those
Good
pictures.
friends. Yeah.
Friends, which was mind blowing. I mean, I'm like, but her mother didn't die that long ago. She never knew that was her mother's friend. Like there was a lot of things that were like her mother kept secret from her. Her mother kept away from her.
Mothers do that, people.
Mothers do that.
Yes, they do
Mothers
that.
Mhm.
Parents
I mean,
do
she
that.
also said they had not a love-hate relationship, but they were talking and then they weren't. They were strange and then they weren't. So it's not uncommon. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I'm not
You
gonna.
might find pictures. Yeah, I might find pictures of my mother and be like, wait a minute, who? She was friends with that person?
I agree. I feel like as a you only owe your children so much, right? Your children's adults, you can go on and live your life. You don't owe them explanations. I'm sure there's lots of things she didn't tell her mother about.
True.
So it's not that that unrealistic that parents keep secrets from their kids.
Yeah.
Or as an adult, like your mom gets friends, your parents get friends too, because when I would go home to visit, my mom would have new friends that I'd never seen them because she met them as an adult when I was, grown.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Once I heard a story about my mother picking up a machete, and it was at odds with everything I knew about my mother. So, but her sister,
There you go.
I'm sure it's true, but somebody asked me, I would have said no way in No way on God's green earth.
So what was the guy veering away from in the street? Was it a deer, a dog, a person? What was that at the car accident?
I didn't see that.
Peter saw in the road.
I'm
When
sorry?
Peter saw something in the road that made him,
Yeah, there was
Swerve?
something. That's why he swerved.
yeah, I thought it was a dog or a deer. I mean,
Yeah,
it was.
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, I couldn't tell, but I tell you what I did like. I love the transitions in the movie, particularly that one scene. Like they didn't really show you the whole accident, but they kind of focus on the screeching wheel, which I thought was different because usually you just hear the cars crashing and things like that, but they didn't focus on any of that. You just heard, you saw the pole, you saw poor Charlie get her head smashed, and then you saw the screeching of the wheel. I was like, okay, it's subtle. It's very different. It's not like you get to watch the whole accident. I don't know. To me, I thought that was different. I thought there were a lot of transitions like that in this movie that I really liked, going from one scene to the next.
There's so much about this movie that I loved, like I said, and it's a love-hate relationship because I love it because it was so good, but I hate that I'm afraid of it. So
Right,
it worked.
right.
I just like the dollhouse, just the whole concept of the dollhouse in the house. So you got to see
Very
the
different.
like I said, the transitions from looking at the wallpaper in the dollhouse to the
Yeah.
wallpaper room, and how she was, like I said, recreating these things from her memory of, her standing at the end of her son's bed, ready to burn him alive. It was just really interesting. But I thought this movie, for somebody this is the first time writing and directing, I mean, you talk about knocking it out of the ballpark. There
Yeah.
was very little useless dialogue in this movie. And that's one of the things I hate about so many modern movies, is that there's always these soliloquies and monologues and
Yeah.
essays or unnecessary romance or boobs or breasts or sex or whatever it is. This movie, there was no fat in it.
It was raw.
About 4 people in the grill. It stayed on that. There were no
Yep.
quirky, person next door, no boyfriends and girlfriends getting involved. It was just straight. And it made you feel claustrophobic because of that, because there weren't a lot of outside people coming in. You felt that anguish in that house, and you felt like, gosh, they're trapped. I'm feeling trapped.
Yep. Yeah.
It's really,
No distractions. Yeah. There were no distractions. You had to focus on what was happening because that was in your face.
And you couldn't turn away. They didn't
Right.
give you a break. They didn't give you can I,
You know
How
what I
about
didn't
this?
understand? I didn't understand when the mother's friend was across the street of the son's school and she was saying something and she said, "I release you," and
Yeah.
I didn't get, like, what was that about? I didn't understand what was going on, and that was one of my things where I was like, okay, why was that a piece of it? Like maybe I just didn't understand it. What was what was
I
that
think that
about?
was Joan. And I think because she was part of that cult or whatever you want to call it, she was talking to Peter saying, let go, release yourself, probably join us, is maybe in layman's terms is what she was saying. Just come, just let it go. Just stop trying to fight it, is what I got out of that. Because I know it was her. And now that we know that she was part of the whole scheme, I think she was just telling him to, because at that point he was downtrodden, he was beaten, right? He was done. And I think she was just saying, let go.
It's weird
Oh,
that
she
she was
said, get
out of
out, like maybe
school.
get out of that body. I don't know. No, I don't know. She kept saying get out, but
I mean, you knew that they were all following Peter around because they knew he was the chosen one at that point. So, which is why he kept seeing all those blue lights and things following him around. So that's what it felt like to me. But Whaley, you used a word that maybe somebody used it earlier, but I think you said cult, and I was thinking, yeah, and it kind of goes back to Midsummer, which was kind of a cult. When you think of what people have done in cults, like the suspension of belief,
yep,
the hundreds of people in
yep,
Jonestown
yep.
who killed themselves because this preacher
Bent the
told them
Jews.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's people's minds are weak,
yep,
can be weak, and you see
yep.
it all across. I mean, we judge other people by their beliefs, but anybody, all of us have beliefs that we could never prove to anybody. And
Right.
so who's to say that one is any more accurate than the other? And that's what's so crazy about this. Because you think, I think to myself, I would never, buy into all that. But, I don't think I'm the cult type, but, maybe. Who knows?
It's like people want to believe, they want to believe in something. And sometimes they unfortunately get attached to maybe the wrong something, but that person
Yes.
got them at the right time. Because there are some just fabulous leaders and phenomenal speakers out there, right? And they can read you. And if they know that you are looking to believe in something or looking or have that need to be led, they'll see you. They can smell it a mile away. So they're not even encouraging these people to come. They just come. They just come because they're like, oh my God, that's where I want to be. And it's so easy. I mean, it sounds so bad, but it seems so easy once you get those they'll just follow you to the end of the world. I mean, they do it all the time in every religion, every non-religion, every group. There's a leader and people follow. They just follow.
I mean, it's
You don't have
happening
to twist
now.
anybody's arms or anything.
It's happening now in our political society. You see it. It's like happening now, right
It's
before us.
everywhere. It's because leaders are really good at what they
Always.
do.
Yeah, it's happened since the dawn of time.
Of course.
We've had shamans, we had smoke and mirrors, we've had snakes, we've had wolf in sheep clothing. There's always been folks who have been able to deceive others and
Yep.
influence people and get them to follow them. I mean,
Yep.
if Hitler isn't the best example of that, I don't know who is. I mean, how do you get people to actively, viciously want to kill people for no real reason, and to have an entire country behind it? And he's only the one in modern history. You go back through time, I'm sure there's millions and millions, not millions, but tons of evil people who persuaded people to follow them.
Yep. Just one more thing I wanted to bring up. How about the scene where I don't think he was dreaming, but where she grabs his head, Peter's head, when he's sleeping, like she just grabs his head and
That wasn't him
pulling
dreaming.
it back.
Try to pull it off him.
Yes. Yeah.
That wasn't him dreaming?
No, because remember, I don't think so, because then he woke up and that's when she said, I know the answer. I gotta figure out, I'm the only one that can get this done or something. Poor Peter, like I would have been like, can I please move to somebody else's house? Anybody,
I
please.
thought she said it wasn't me. I just got in the room.
Well, that's what she said, but I don't believe her because she was doing some. Remember, one point he was walking down the hall and she was hiding in one of the rooms, looking all crazy. Yeah, I'd be scared of her too. I really would.
Yeah, look at Sarah. There's nothing scarier than being afraid of your own mother. It just isn't, and not because
Imagine.
because that I'm not afraid of, but just the person that matters the most to you is acting weird, and that's just can't be. I just can't think of anything worse than that. Anything else anybody want to talk about?
I think I hit all of my points. Anybody else? I did. Oh, I thought one other thing I thought was interesting.
When we finish this, if we can stop recording, and then I just want to talk to you guys for a quick second.
Yeah. Okay, well then, I was just going to bring up one other thing. Actually, when the book was on the bed and it started drawing poor Peter with it looked like his eyes were out though, right?
Yeah.
It looked like there were crosses through his eyes. You know, you do all old cartoons and you kill the person, you put an X on their eyes. It looked like there were like X's on his eyes or something, almost as if he was going to lose his sight or walk by faith, not by sight. You know what I mean? That type of, I wasn't exactly sure, but it looked like it was all Peter's pictures that were being drawn by no one on Charlie's bed. Maybe it was Charlie drawing them.
I assumed it was Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a creepy movie.
Yeah. Charlie's bedroom alone was creepy.
Yeah, it sure was. It sure was. Her bed looked so uncomfortable. It almost looked like those dollhouse, the beds in the dollhouse itself. Like
that's exactly what her room looked like. It looked like the room in the dollhouse, because was her bed or was it Peter's that had the circular window above it?
Hers.
Yeah, it looked like a dollhouse. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just very uncomfortable.
Well, I'm gonna rate it. You guys
Yeah.
already, I give it a 5.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a 4. I really liked it though. I definitely gonna, but there's just so many questions. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.
I'm gonna say like 4.8 because I loved it. There were just a couple of things I needed that I didn't get, but yeah, it was way up there for me. Way up there for me.
Those are some really low scores from you guys really liked it.
Well,
To
5
me,
is
how
the
low
highest.
scores.
Watch
No,
it
it's
again.
5.
1 to 5,
Which
so
one is 5? But I think you should watch it again.
Oh, I just wanted because you guys brought up a lot of good points. And since I didn't connect the dots a lot, I'm just curious now. I'm gonna watch it again, but I think I rated it as a 2, but I think I'll give it a 4.5 now.
Wait a minute. No,
wow.
that's how do you go from a 2 to a 4.5? That means you love the movie.
No, okay, wait a minute. I thought we were going to 10. It's
No,
1
it's
out
out
of
of
10?
5.
Oh, it's 1 out of 5? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 2.5.
That's fair.
Okay. Okay. The next time we chat though, I want to hear what your real score is now that when you go back and actually say, oh yeah, this was deep.
I thought it was 1 out of 5. I mean, 1 out of 10.
Nope, 1 out of 5. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then I guess that's it from the ladies here. There's Fly Girl, Sunchild, Nunya, Whaley Hollow. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys. Have a good one.